How are you at telling somebody you're not in this picture?
You know, I think I'm very good at it because I only know, for me, I'm going to be honest with you. And the one thing about me is that there is no in between. I'm going to either tell you, either you're going to like it or you're not going to like it. But that's the way I'm honest with you, you know, because that's how, when they, you're just not cutting it. And I think sometimes we set our young people up for failure when we're not honest with them. It's not that you're trying to, you uplift them, but to give every child a certificate and make them feel like they're doing okay when they're not. These are some of the things that you need to work on. I need you to work on this. Then I see you improving. I'm going to give you something that's saying, I see you improving. I'm not just going to give you one and say, oh, because you participated. And the whole time you just sat over there and participated just by clapping. But if that's what you want to do, I have no problem with that because there are team managers and there are people that do those things. But I need for you to understand that if you really want to be in the mix, these are some of the things that you need to work on. Now you go and you work on those and you come back. Because I was that kid. I finished last in my first race.
Really?
Yes. And they told me, okay, so I came up with, don't know where I got this from. If I can improve 1/10 of a second if I was running 1/2 of an inch, that meant the work that I'm doing is paying off. And I learned that 4 through 9th or 4 through 8th was always on the grass. And you got all different color ribbons. And 1, 2, 3 was always on the podium. And I had to say, now how do I get in on the podium? So you learn how to get in the mix. Same way. It's like you go in for a job interview, you get rejected. Okay, now how do I deal with this? What is it that I need to work on?
One of the hardest things for me about corporate America was that I would interview people for a position that I had open. If I didn't give it to them, I am not allowed to tell them why. Because we live in this litigious society. We live in an environment where people are like, don't hurt their feelings. You can't do it. But it is killing us because I saw candidates that I was like, you have all these talents. You have all these skills. But these are the things that are a gap in your career or in where you're at. And if you go out and find a way to fill that gap, you'll be unstoppable.
Right.
But we've stripped in so much of society, we've stripped out the ability to tell people real feedback. And I don't think it's helping us any.
I don't think it's helping us any because I think sometimes we get caught up into, we lose sight of, oh, this person on paper, they look, wow, amazing. You know, talented, but then when it comes for the interpersonal things, it's like, whoa. Now, I got a group of people I'm going to work with. Now, how am I going to pull this person in? This person might not be a great fit. They can interview well, but it's always something in that interview.
You look back on it and you're like, notice. I knew it.
Yes,
I just didn't listen to myself.
Exactly, because you go against your gut. Because there's always something that person that was interviewing, they would come back to it and in the back of your mind, but the majority of everybody, oh, they wonderful, there's this, but you know, you're like, and then it surfaced. Once you bring the person in, now it's like, okay, now how do I deal with it?
How do I get out of this problem now that because I signed my name on the dotted line by saying, yeah, this is acceptable.
Right.
I completely agree with this and see that in so many aspects of life, not just in employment and not just athletics, we don't tell people what the nature of reality is. Like we would rather either get along with them or have them like us than we would be honest.
Right. And I think, and that's tough though, because it's one thing to be likable, but I want you to like me because you're honest with me. I know that if I come to you, you're going to be honest with me. And it might hurt my feelings at the time, but at least I know you care about me enough to tell me, because I'd rather you tell me than someone else who really don't
Well, there's
care
two
about
people
me.
that'll tell you what they really think. The people that love you and the people that hate you.
Right.
And the people that hate you will tell you in vicious ways.
You're right.
So you want to be the type of person that tells other people, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and I'm doing it out of love, even though I know that I'm risking the fact that you might not like me.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that you know, even like with, see a lot of, you know, like young people, right? And they feel like they have no patience. They want this job. They want this amount of money. And they don't realize that I don't care what your skill level is. You could work your way up, you know. But if you want that kind of money, then, you know, go and start your own business. You know, do your own thing.
Yeah, if you have that picture, then it's, you got to think of it. You got to stand back and look at how does this fit into things,
right,
to be the bigger picture.
Yes.
So you and your brother are both gold medal athletes. Your brother is an astounding talent. And you were running in women's events and he was running in men's events. Now this is getting changed over. People that were men are now running in women's events. I imagine you have a nuanced perspective about this. What do you think about how this is shaping up in society?
You know what? We live in a society now where, well, first of all, I think if you're born a male, then you should compete as a male, you know, and we know as the ages start their development and where younger boys who might be competing with girls at a younger age it's tough. And, you know, you've seen it a lot in the sports. I think I just read something where they were suing somebody.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. And at first I paid attention to it and then I was like, this is chaos. I don't know how to pay attention to it. But when I look at it, I think a man has more muscle. He's got more bone density. If he had an opportunity to get out ahead and then says, I want to go compete over here, you're not comparing the same thing.
No. And that's why they were really looking into it and trying to look at these, I mean, chromosomes or whatever. But I just, there is somewhat of it would be a disadvantage.
And one of the thoughts that I had about why you have a unique perspective is you were competing at the top levels. You were crushing it. And then somebody threw out a single accusation that you were using drugs and it started to corrode away. And so you know what it is to be competing at your highest levels and having people throw noise into that.
Right.
What did that teach you about the world when that happened?
You know what? It reminded me of focus on the things I can control and not worry about the things I can't, because I tell myself that. But the reality of it is because if you perform at a high level, then it's like something's, you know, wrong. Not how you got there, you know. So for me, it was like disappointing, you know, and was it gamemanship? You know, because sometimes, you know, all of a sudden females were getting attention, and with that kind of attention, then all of a sudden there's endorsements and things. But if you can throw something out there to make people think twice. So, you know, there was a whole lot of reasoning, you know, nothing to back it up and it's just unfortunate because I think back then when we were competing, you know, I wish our federation or someone just would have came forward and said, you know, but, you know, that wasn't going to happen. So
because they weren't willing to take a stand. They weren't willing to go out and put their name on the line.
No, I just think that there wasn't an avenue for it, you know, because back then people can just throw things out. Now you throw things out, you better be able to back up what you're saying, you know, and the transitions of women just excelling and doing well. It was like, you don't want that. So then all of a sudden something must be wrong. You know, oh, they got to be taking drugs. They got to be, you know.
And I think that is the natural human tendency when somebody else is achieving, even if they're achieving in a different area than you think, well, they're not that good.
Right.
You know, because if I were in their position, I would be succeeding. So they must be cheating.
Right.
And I think that brings up the fragility of human nature, because you can be achieving as an individual, but in society, your reputation
is everything, you know, and you don't want nobody to, you know. I mean, I remember we were in high school and they were like, we're like, what are they talking about? You know, because we dominated, you know, and.
Oh, you got accusations all the way back then?
Oh, yeah, they were like, you know, like they doing something. They're like, we didn't even know what they were talking about. So that's why.
Wait, is there something we could be doing? I didn't know.
No, but it was just the idea that we were good, and then, you know, people would say things, and, you know, like, what did we had no idea what people were saying, you know. So
it's just soul crushing, though.
It's soul crushing, but that's another way, the mental game to get you off. I take everything in from the standpoint of my husband would always remind me that you prepare to be in the best shape. If someone gonna beat you, don't let them beat you on technicality. So put yourself in a position where you know you've done the work. Block out the noise, because it's the noise that would distract you from getting the job done. So if you are expected to win, they expecting you to win. They're not expecting someone else. But if they can distract you and that's someone else, that's headline news.
Yeah.
So don't let the things that you can't control consume you to the point that you can't perform to the best of your ability. And that's what happens, is that people, you know, throw things out there to see if it's going to stick, you know. And
the only ones that get to the top and stay there are the ones that figure out how not to let it harm you.
Right. And, you know, and it's easy to say and it's difficult to do, because, you know, no one wants their reputation tarnished. You know, you work so hard and someone throws out an accusation which has no validity to it at all. But I like, you know, that it goes back to the consistency of what I want to do and just keep going. That's why, you know, I could smile and say, you know.
It's why I think your foundation is so interesting, because at first blush you'd be like, oh, somebody has a foundation, their name gets to live on, like, look at the accolades that person gets. But then you come to realize, no, Jackie Joyner-Kersee is signing her name on everything here. And so how the public views that, what we do for these students, how effective it all is, that will be your legacy. It's not like handing out a pair of shoes and if somebody's like, I didn't like the pumps this year, that's not that.
Exactly. And that's what, you know, is very, for me, it's rewarding, but I also know that there's a downside to that. And that's why it's so important for the people who work for the organization understand, you know, that, okay, you guys can easily walk away. But once something happens, they talking about Jackie Joyner-Kersee.
Yeah.
I can't walk away.
Right.
You know, everything I built is built around my reputation. So we have to be on top of, that's why the expectation and the standard of excellence is always high, where I can't afford to have someone just, you know, blase, we're not going to do this. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
So if your expectation and your standard of excellence can't reach our level of expectation, then this is not the place for you, because there's consequences. When you don't do what you're supposed to do, you don't suffer. My organization suffer and I suffer.
Right.
So when I started talking to them about, you know, I'm like, I'm not tooting my horn. I'm telling you, this is my life.
Right.
So